Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a couple of times before, albeit it's been about 4 or 5 months since my last review from these guys. But I was impressed with the beers that I had and I'm looking forward to seeing how this one turns out, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it as well. So for this one then, we are going to head a little bit north to Karlstad on the banks of Värmland, one of the Great Lakes of Sweden, and we're going to return to 10 Hands Brewing. So these guys do some very nice hazy New England IPAs in my experience, and it's one of these that we're going to have a look at today. So this particular beer is the double dry hopped version of Caterpillar. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is a New England double IPA, hazy double IPA, however you want to call it. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. This is going to be review number 5 from this brewery, if memory serves me correctly, and this beer was released as part of the Lokal Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for February of 2021. They also released a Berliner Weisse, and you will see me review that one a little bit later, and I'm quite curious to see how that one turns out, because that will be the first different style of beer that I review from these guys. But yeah, hazy New England double IPA, this one, 8% ABV, and I believe that it's Citra and Mosaic that are in this one, so a kind of classic combination if you like. But yeah, definitely nice to return to these guys again after a few months, and I look forward to seeing what they're going to produce over 2021, especially if they're starting to diversify their styles a little bit. So yeah, let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from 10 Hands Brewing before, and you will no doubt see more from these guys in the fairly near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about 10 Hands Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So 10 Hands Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Karlstad on the banks of Vänern in Värmland County, which is kind of out to the sort of northeast-ish of Gothenburg, Göteborg, if I'm remembering correctly. And there's a few breweries in this town actually. There's MJ's Brewery, there's Good Guys, and I think there's 1 or 2 others that I can't think of at the moment actually. But this brewery was founded by a group of friends. So the 5 friends behind the company are Robert Hedel, Johan Eklund, Fredrik Steen, Göran Larsson and Jan Karlsson, and all of these guys each own a 20% stake in the company, which was founded officially back in November of 2018. So very new out of the block, these guys, only about 2 and a bit years old now. But all of them have a little bit of brewing experience, but it's Johan Eklund who is the main brewer. They released their first beer in March of 2019, and this was an IPA called Firstborn. I would like to try that one actually. I don't know if they will release that through Systembolaget, but that year, over 2019, they released 20,000 litres of beer. But they started releasing their beers through Systembolaget in 2020, and as of February 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, they've produced around 30 different kinds of beer. As I mentioned earlier, these guys seem to mainly specialise in the New England hazy IPAs. I haven't had a look at the list again too extensively to see what it is they had, but I'm sure actually when I looked at it before, when I originally composed the notes, when there was about 25 or so beers, I think pretty much all of them were New England hazies of some description. But yeah, these guys are doing some really nice examples of that style. For me, the stuff you're getting that I had from these guys before was up there with the likes of Stigbergets, OO, you know, I'm trying to think who else, you know, some of the Brewski IPAs and stuff like that as well. The quality of the New England stuff that I had last year from these guys was pretty damn good actually. So I can see these guys, once they get their capacity up a little bit, I think they're going to do pretty damn well actually, and I hope that they produce a couple of West Coast IPAs and black IPAs and things like that as well. But yeah, you know, the New England hazy IPAs are the popular style at the moment, and yeah, I think we will see a few more of these from them over the next little while. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about 10 Hands Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And of course, you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all of the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So yeah, as you can see, the artwork on this one again is very, very nice. One of the last beers I had, I'm sure, was actually a tribute to, I forget the name of it now, but it was a tribute to their artist. I think she's Ukrainian, if I remember rightly. Doesn't have her name on it, I don't think, though. Does it have her name listed somewhere? It'd be cool if they got a little signature on the can somewhere with her artwork on it. But yeah, the artist for this brewery is Ukrainian, from what I understand. And yeah, they released a beer that was dedicated to her. But yeah, there you can see on the back of the can, that is the 10 Hands Brewing symbol. The brewery, of course, takes its name from the fact that there's 5 owners of the brewery, so 10 Hands. But yeah, like I said earlier, 8% New England double IPA, this one, hazy IPA, and of course double dry hopped. I'm not sure if there is an original Caterpillar, but yeah, it should be quite nice. But this beer is listed as the double dry hopped Caterpillar and Untappd, so I guess when I publish the video, that's the name that I'll go with. Probably just call it DDH Caterpillar. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. 330ml can, and I think I paid about 40 Swedish kronas for this, so €4, £3.50 roughly, and I guess $4.50 American. So yeah, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, this beer was released as part of the Lokal Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for February of 2021, and they released a Berliner Weisse as well, and you'll see that review appear a little bit later on. So yeah, I'll say looking forward to this. Just check that that's lined up again, my OCD kicking in. But yeah, there you go. So, as you can see, and as you would expect from a New England hazy IPA, this one's poured a lovely kind of hazy, nice, hazy bright yellow colour. If we shine the light through this, I would describe this one as being a kind of very dark and very rich yellow colour. I would describe this as being akin to a mango juice. You can see the head on this one was about between a half and a 2/3 finger. There's a little bit of a nice kind of creamy coloured head on there. I wouldn't say it's perfect white, but it's quite frothy. You can see that if we put it up to the kind of edge of the camera there, so it looks very nice. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there, but I mean overall it does look pretty nice. If I stick my fingers behind the glass, you can see there is, if I stick my fingers behind the glass, you can see that there is a nice level of haze to this one. It's not the soupiest and gloopiest of New Englands that you're going to come across for an 8%er, and the level of haze that you get in these beers is usually due to the kind of oat or the wheat content. Sometimes the yeast can affect it as well, and you know, theoretically speaking, as you go up the alcohol scale, you'll have more oats and more wheat, and it should be a little bit hazier, but that's not always the case. It is more kind of down to the ratios, and the colour of these beers, of course, is dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use, and 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour out of the beer, but in the first instance it's dependent on what type of malts that you use. But yeah, in terms of a New England hazy double IPA, whatever you want to call it, I think this one is pretty much as you'd expect. But yeah, I would compare this to quite a nice rich mango juice, and I'm just going to say the aroma coming out of this one is very, very nice. So let's take a closer look at that then. Nothing particularly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is. So yeah, let's go for it. Yeah, so the aroma of this beer is pretty nice, and I'm going to say straight away, this beer smells as if it's going to be a bit of a bitter hit, to be honest with you. Yeah, that is quite a dank. It does have a good bit of dankness to it, let's just say that. There's a bit of danky in there. Yeah, wondering now if this could be the most bitter one that I would have had from 10 Hands Brewing so far, but we've not even tasted it yet. So let's focus on the malty side of the beer first, and then we'll move to the hops. Yeah, so on the malty side of things, it comes across as quite well balanced. Remember, in my opinion at least, I think there's 6 directions you can take a New England IPA, and it can be wheaty and bitey, it can be oaty and creamy, it can be more yeasty and sort of farmhousey, it can be rye and kind of grainy like. You can have a little, it can be a little bit more kind of brown sugary and sweet, and I'm trying to remember now which one I've forgotten. It can be more kind of bready and barley malt leaning. There we go. So yeah, those are the 6 directions for me that you can take a New England IPA in. But for me, this one, it comes across as more in the aroma. If you take it in deeply, you can get a nice little bit of the smooth oaty character out there, but I think the wheat does have a good little bit of prominence as well, and you can smell some of the barley malt in there too. This beer doesn't strike me as being yeasty, it doesn't strike me as being rye like, and I don't think it doesn't strike me as being overly kind of brown sugary either, to be honest with you. So yeah, when I take the aroma in, if you just take like a little, this is how we used to do, we were told to smell chemicals in the lab when I was doing chemistry. If you just take a little light waft of it, it comes across as more oaty, if that makes sense. But if you fire your nose into it and take it in deeply, you're going to get more of the wheat out of it. And of course within that you're getting white bread. It's not uncommon, well, it's very common to get white bread, sort of white bready notes from the barley malt in these New England IPAs. So the malt base comes across as a little bit old school, I think. I mean, it's comparable to the Amazing Haze, the GBG Beer Week, the Narangi, these kind of more old school New England IPAs in Sweden. But I think it does seem to lean a little bit towards the wheaty side of things. And in fairness, if this is going to be a kind of slightly higher bitterness New England IPA, which doubles tend to be a little bit higher in bitterness, then to be honest, that would make sense. To be honest with you, that would make sense. So yeah, quite happy with that. On the you do get a wee touch of a kind of Werther's Original butter candy sort of thing out of it, but I think the aroma for me in the malty side of things is definitely a bit more kind of wheaty and stuff like that. So I think that covers the malt base pretty well. Quite wheaty leaning, but definitely oats and barley malt in there as well. And you've got a nice wee bit of how would you say? You do have a nice little bit of I would say you just get a little touch of kind of brown sugar note out of this one. But yeah, let's focus on the hoppy side of the beer. So on the hoppy side of things, as I was saying earlier, when you first smell this beer, you're going to notice that it has quite a bit of dankness to it. So for me, I wonder if there's a bit of Columbus in here, maybe a bit of Chinook as well as the bittering hop. So remember, with these IPAs, if you add the hops in the early stage of the wort boil, that's going to be when you get the most bitterness out of the hops. You've got a trade-off basically over the period of the wort boil. The earlier on you add the hops, the more bitterness you get out of them, but as you move further and further into the wort boil, you're going to get more and more sort of how would you say, you're going to get that trade-off in favour of flavour and aroma, if you like. That's what your trade-off is going to be. But yeah, for me, there's a good bit of big floral aromatic quality to this one. It actually does come across as having a bit of pine resin to it, so that's what's making me wonder about Chinook. There's a good little bit of spice in there, and that makes me wonder about Columbus. So I would not be surprised if they've used both of those in the kind of bittering stage of this one. Columbus is very distinctive, and there's just things going off in my head about this one, saying that there's Columbus in here. But yeah, you do get a little bit of grassiness out of the beer as well, and it's got a wee bit of zest. It's actually, I wouldn't even say that. I don't think the grass is too zesty in this. I think it is quite a soft grassy note there. So on the sides of the nose it's very powerful and aromatic and things, but yeah, at the front of the nose it's a bit lighter and grassy. And like I said, this one is supposed to have Citra and Mosaic in it, which are very distinctive hops. Both of them American, both of them about 14% alpha acid. Citra gives you the lovely kind of mango notes and some tropical fruit complexities, whereas Mosaic is a more kind of juicy tangerine orange sort of thing, and you get a lot of these elements in this one. So in the aroma there's a wee touch of a passion fruity note there. That's the Citra that's going to give you that. You get the soft mangoes, you get a few other kind of tropical fruity notes in there as well, definitely. But then I think, to be honest with you, I think the Mosaic actually dominates the fruity side of this beer. I get more Mosaic out of this than I do Citra, to be honest with you. You get more of a kind of that oily tangerine or orangey flavour out of this one than you do than you do the kind of juicy mangoes and stuff, to be honest. So that's quite an interesting thing about this beer, I have to say. I do like how that how all of that goes together in this one. So yeah, the aroma profile of this beer is pretty nice, but you know, as I say, if you know Citra and Mosaic, then it's not overly surprising. So nice big green component to this one, and then you've got a kind of wheaty leaning malt base, I would say. So yeah, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this beer before you get stuck into it, but I think it's time to taste this one now. So this is the double dry hop version of Caterpillar, a New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, double IPA at 8% ABV from 10 Hands Brewing in Karlstad on the banks of Vänern in Värmland here in Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Ooh. I'll tell you something. Just on that first little sip there, it surprises me how sweet the malt base of this beer is. That malt base is quite different to what you would get the impression of in the aroma here. So does it say? Yeah, it's wheat and oats in this one. Now I'm just going to say, I think some of the barley malt in this, there's a good chance there's maybe something like Maris Otter or Golden Promise or something in here, because it's just got a little bit of sweetness in there. I mean, it could be, you know, Cara Munich or something like this, but this beer does have a wee bit of a kind of brown sugary sweetness to it, let's just say that. And that's strange because I wasn't picking that up in the aroma. The wheat was giving me more thing there. So this is, sometimes you get beers that taste exactly as you would think from the aroma, but this one is a wee bit different. So yeah, but I'm going to say straight away, this is on par. At least this is definitely on par with the other New England IPAs that I've had from this brewery before. One of the things I always struggle with, if a brewery does loads and loads of New England IPAs, I always struggle to say which one I think is better. Whereas, you know, if they release lots of different styles, I can say, oh, that was a really good IPA. You know, I have the same with Stigbergets. For example, you know, Stigbergets and Brewski and things like this. You know, I have so many IPAs from these guys. Apex are another one. It's difficult to say which one you like best unless you're kind of having them in very quick succession. So all I can really tell you is that this is a really bloody solid New England IPA. I can't really think to compare it to any of the other ones I've had. Definitely a bit more boozy though, I will say that about it. So yeah, where to start with this beer then? So straight away, in the middle of the palate, you can feel a little bit of that kind of white bready. You can feel a little bit of that sort of white bready base malt in there. That goes right across the middle of your palate. If you go towards that border region between middle third and back third of your tongue, there's a little bit of a kind of bread crusty thing. Then on the back third of your palate, it's all about the wheat. The wheat does have a good little bit of bitiness to it. I'm wondering about when this was canned as well, because you can kind of feel that the wheat, I find that with New England IPAs, if you leave them a little bit, you know, the wheat starts to thicken up, and I can definitely feel that a little bit with this one. And I'm wondering if I've made a mistake in the video earlier when I've told you that this has been released for February of 2021, although I don't think I have. But it says here the best before date is 2021 11/16. So has this thing been canned in November and then left for, like, you know, and then been left in the can for 2 months? Because the thing that I'm thinking with it is, the wheat is thickened. It feels like the wheat in this beer's thickened up a little bit. It comes across as a wee bit more boozy, and usually these are things that you get out of a New England IPA that has been sitting for a little while. So I do wonder about that. And again, if that's the case, Systembolaget, I think, need to be getting these beers on the shelves a little bit faster. It usually, from what I understand, it usually takes about 3 months to do all the paperwork and submit it and everything like that. I think a lot of breweries have to submit the paperwork 3 months in advance. So I'm wondering if this beer is at its freshest. And that was just because I took a little look at the can there, and as I say, you get some of you can feel that the wheat is just thickened up in this beer a little bit, and it feels a little bit more boozy. And I don't remember the other 10 Hands beers feeling boozy in the way that this one does actually. But then I'm trying to remember if any of them were at the same percentage, come to think of. I think most of them are around 7, come to when I think about it. Because yeah, usually if you do one of these, you would can it and then put the date a year in advance. So yeah, yeah, it definitely has a wee bit of that booziness to it. But yeah, the back third of the palate is definitely about the sort of wheaty side of things. It definitely kind of thickens up a wee bit, and you know, you can feel that on that back third of your palate there is a good thick wheaty presence there, and you can feel that the wheat, I don't know if turbid is the right word, but you can just feel that the wheat has thickened up a little bit on this beer. It's definitely got a bit of that kind of wheaty bite, that kind of almost zingy character to it. And yeah, as you move further forward into the border region there, the thickness just drops away a little bit, and then in the middle third of your palate you've got a nice how would you say, you've got a nice little bit of you've got a nice, you know, you can feel on top of that bready layer, you can feel some of the wheat kind of sitting there as well, and it feels like it's a little bit condensed. On the front half of that middle third of your palate, you get more of the oaty smoothness out of the beer, and then in the very centre of your tongue you get a nice you get a wee bit of a kind of how do you say, you get a little bit more of a kind of Werther's Original, yeah, there's a wee bit of a sort of Werther's Original kind of brown sugary butter candy sort of thing coming out of the beer as well. But yeah, to me this one, the other ones that I had from 10 Hand before, I remember them being a little bit more kind of oaty and creamy than this. A little bit more oaty and creamy, in fairness. And this one, it does feel a little bit boozy, and there's just something in my head that's telling me this beer is not quite at its freshest. I mean, in fairness, I'm reviewing this one for you on the 25th of February, because, you know, I usually get these beers around the 10th, and then over the 2 weeks I review them. So yeah, I guess in a way, that's on me. There's about 3 weeks of the time in this that are, well, maybe 2 weeks and a bit of the time that are on me. But yeah, if that has been canned in November, which I suspect it might have been just going from the date, I think that's been sitting too long to go into Systembolaget. So, and I don't remember the other 10 Hands beers being quite like this. And it is, don't get me wrong, it's still a solid beer, but it just, you can just kind of tell it's not quite at its freshest actually, and that's a bit of a shame. But I mean, as a New England double IPA, it is pretty solid. So for me, this one overall, I would say it is quite wheaty leaning, the malt base overall, and you can just feel the nice sort of thickness to it as well. So, you know, if that's your sort of thing, then yeah, if you're a fan of the likes of the Trillium New England IPAs, this is one that's going to kind of hit the boat a little, you know, that's going to kind of strike you a little bit more. But yeah, it is pretty solid in that sense. It's another, you know, as I say, it's another solid beer from 10 Hands Brewing for sure. Just trying to see if my mouth would kind of, if it changes a little bit, if it evolves on the palate. But yeah, no, it sticks to the wheaty side of things. You do get a wee bit more oatiness out of it, in fairness, and I think it does sweeten up in the middle of the palate as well. But yeah, it comes across as kind of boozy, this one, but 8%, yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, interesting stuff, this one. A little bit of food for thought here. Yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of the palate there's a nice little bit of earthiness there, and as you move further forward, the earthiness does spread forward a wee bit, but then you start to reach, then when you get towards the front of the palate, you start to get a little bit more of a kind of floral, aromatic-y type quality to this one. So for me, there's a good bit of, you can pick up a little bit of the kind of Columbus, what I suspect is Columbus spiciness in this one. There is a wee touch of a kind of piney resin note under this one, although I'm questioning now. I'm not sure if there would be Chinook in this one. It doesn't quite strike me as so big and piney. It does strike me as a bit more kind of floral and spicy in the flavour here. But then yeah, around the front curve of the palate, the beer is distinctly lighter and more kind of grassy in a sense, and the grassiness does have just a little bit of zestiness to it, which is good. So yeah. So yeah, I think that covers the green component quite well. But in fairness, what I would say about the beer, the nice kind of floral notes that it has, it does kind of that does kind of build a good bridge with the kind of more wheaty leaning malt base that the beer has, and the slightly bigger booziness that it has as well. But yeah, let's focus on the fruity side of the beer then. So on the front third of your palate then, you always get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So if you go to that border region between middle third and kind of front third of your palate, again you get a wee bit of that kind of bread crusty note there. You can feel a little bit of a thicker, oaty and wheaty kind of character to the beer there. But underneath the fruits, it's definitely a smoother kind of slightly, it is a little bit of a kind of wheaty character in there. I think the wheat really is quite present in this one. I think the wheat is the most dominant of the malty components in this beer, but again the hoppy character is what you'd expect. So if you start at the back of that front third of your tongue, there's a wee bit of a kind of passion fruity note there, and as you move further forward it gets a little bit more kind of juicy and mango like, and then as you reach the sort of front half of that front third of your tongue, then it's a little bit more kind of mango, a little bit more kind of tangerine and orangey in a sense. So yeah, at the back half of the tongue it's more the mosaic, the mixing them up, it's more the citra that's coming out, and then on the front half of the front third of your tongue it's a little bit more kind of tangerine and things like that. It's definitely got a little bit more of the kind of juicy tangerine quality of the mosaic in there, and on the front edge of your palate you do just get a wee bit of grassy zestiness out of the beer. But yeah, the hoppy, the fruity side of the beer goes together nice to the green component. It's nice. I think the malt base has just a little touch too much booziness in it for me. I think it could be just it's either not at its prime freshness, which I think is the case with this one, or it maybe just needs kind of a wee bit more oatiness or something in it just to kind of smoothen it out a little bit more in a sense. So yeah, but again maybe this one is meant to be a little bit more kind of boozy and give you a little bit more of a hit like that. But yeah, I mean it's another solid New England double IPA from these guys. I just suspect that this one has maybe been sitting in the Systembolaget warehouse a little bit too long. That's my fear with this one, especially when I look at the canned on date being the which I suspect it says that is the best before date it gives here, the 2021 11/16, and usually these would have a year put on them, I would think. So yeah, if someone from I know that a couple of the guys from the brewery have watched my reviews before, so I'd be curious to hear about that. But yeah, this one just strikes me as being a little bit, the wheat's thickening up and it just feels a little bit more boozy. That's a sign of the New England IPA sitting for a little bit too long in the warehouse, in the can or whatever. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel with this one then, it's got a really nice, it does have a very nice mouthfeel to it. It's got a nice, for me this one comes across as a little bit oily and a little bit slick in a sense, and that really helps the fruity side of this beer. The fruity side, you know, the citra and the mosaic is a classic combination, and it comes out really nicely, and the green component of this beer I think is really solid as well. So that works for it, that definitely works for this beer. But yeah, a slightly more oily, slicker New England IPA in my opinion. But yeah, the malty side of the beer, as I say, it feels like the wheat's kind of thickened up a little bit. It comes across as a little bit boozy, this beer, in a sense. So yeah, it's interesting that, because the other thing you could do with this beer would be to put a little bit, you know, a wee touch of caramel or something in it and just cover the booziness a little bit more. That's the other thing you could do with this. You could either use oat or you could use a little bit more caramel with it and kind of refine it that way. But like I say, this beer, it's got a lovely green component to it. I think this one's a bit more bitter. I want to say about 50-ish IBUs here. It just feels a little bit more kind of dank in a sense. Then you've got some lovely oily fruity notes in this one, but the malt base, as I say, a bit boozy and a little bit more kind of you know, a little bit more, it just feels like quite, you know, thick and wheaty and dense, to be honest with you, and that's quite a wheaty leaning New England IPA, this one. So yeah, if that's your sort of thing, if you like the Trillium IPAs, then this one will be right up your street, but I suspect it's not fresh, as I've repeated a few times. I think it's not quite as fresh as it could be, but yeah, interesting beer, this one, and it's been nice to return to 10 Hands Brewing. I'm very curious to see what the Berliner Weisse has in store for us. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this review then. I think this one was really nice, and I think the green component in the fruit in this one, I think for me was nice, but the malt base maybe just needs a wee bit touch more refining, or it needs to get on the shelf a bit quicker, and that's Systembolag Lager's fault if that's the case. But yeah, nice to return to 10 Hands Brewing after a couple of months, and as I say, I look forward to trying the Berliner Weisse. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from 10 Hands Brewing as well. Like I say, we will return to these guys for a look at the Berliner Weisse within the next couple of videos. But thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out 10 Hands Brewing, and you will see more reviews from these guys over 2021. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and catch you guys on the next one.